the new lawsuit coming with Jay, the part with Jay. I go, oh shoot, like
to us, black excellence,
that had to be there.
We getting tighter, you know what I'm saying? And united we stand, and ain't nothing.
What was expected to be the closing chapter of Sean Diddy Combs' legal nightmare quickly turned into an even bigger shockwave when Jay-Z, Puff himself, was suddenly pulled into the courtroom chaos. And it all unfolded in just a matter of minutes.
Now, I bet you want to know why Jay-Z and Beyonce's name keep popping up around the whole Diddy thing. Well, that's why I'm here. Now, first thing you gotta know is when somebody like Diddy gets taken down, things always start out as a rumor. Diddy has had rumors floating around for like decades. Well, Jay-Z had a problem. He right there in the corner, by the way. Jay-Z has had a few rumors himself, but more like speculation. People see Jay-Z in a picture of R. Kelly, they're like, I guess they both make music. Then Jay-Z with Harvey Weinstein. People are like, I guess they both do business. Then, of course, Jay-Z with Diddy. Now, hold on. Here's the thing. Jay-Z and Diddy go way back. Like back to the days when they were both coming up. So you could say they might just have a lot of respect for each other. But on the other hand, people are like, well, if you've known each other that long, Jay-Z, you must have known what Diddy was on. But Jay-Z has always had a history of keeping quiet, which brings us to Aaliyah. Now, I'm sure y'all remember R. Kelly dated Aaliyah when she literally needed her parents' permission slip to get married. Now, if I remember correctly, her parents got the permission slip and said, marry who? And that's how this whole thing got exposed. Now, a lot of people in the industry actually knew about this relationship because they would work with R. Kelly. They would be in the studio with R. Kelly. Now, according to Dame Dash, who listened closely, was Jay-Z's first business partner and also dated Aaliyah when she was 21. He said this is how it went. He said he didn't want anything to do with R. Kelly because everyone knew what type of timing R. Kelly was on. He looks over at Jay-Z, and Jay-Z's out here creating collab albums with R. Kelly. But then he saw why. For starters, everyone had a crush on Aaliyah. People were waiting down the clock until she turned 18. But Jay-Z decided to get a head start. Now, there is absolutely no proof that Jay-Z went after Aaliyah, but people were like, let me see another picture. But apparently Jay-Z wasn't successful, and Dame Dash started dating her when she was 21. Now, what does this all have to do with Diddy? It's the secrets. It's the, like what happened to Diddy, making people wonder. Nas came out, well, he technically didn't come out and say this, but while he was having his legendary beef with Jay-Z, he's doing a radio interview, and he's saying, it's weird that Jay-Z be working with people that need a permission slip to marry somebody, R. Kelly. But again, rumors, kind of like what was happening to Diddy. But then this lawyer comes out and says, boy, do I got some news for y'all. And here's where it starts to get wicked. Now, he's going after Diddy. Specifically, listen closely, anyone that Diddy might have done something to, or anyone who's watched Diddy do some of these things and stayed silent about it. Now, first of all, the lawyer's taking calls from anyone. So theoretically, anyone could just call trying to get some money saying Diddy did this to me, Diddy should pay me. But in the lawyer's defense, I'm sure he's looking for people with proof. Honestly, I don't know him. He could be trash. Anyway, what he said next is what got people interested. He said, and I got some names. He said some wild names. Some names that will blow your mind. He's selling this. He's saying, yo, y'all finna wild out when you hear these names. I'm not gonna say it now, but y'all finna wild out. So people are like, Now, in Beyonce's case, it's just because she's married to Jay-Z and she's been in the industry for like 20 years. People are like, you must have known something. But that's all people have. Now, in Jay-Z's defense, he's famously all about the money. As far as we've seen, he's always been around Diddy for like a public event or when money's involved.
Diddy had just been found not guilty in his federal RICO case. After months of pressure, rumors, and non-stop media attention, it all finally came to an end. The courtroom was heavy with tension. His legal team finally let out a breath. Diddy closed his eyes for a moment, looking relieved. It was finished. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. Because right after the verdict was announced and reporters rushed out to break the news, a court clerk walked over and handed a sealed envelope to the judge. The judge opened it, quickly read the contents, and his face completely changed. What happened next shook the entire courtroom. A new subpoena, and a new name, Jay-Z. In a shocking twist, the judge revealed that new evidence presented during the trial had opened a separate inquiry involving Sean Carter. The room went silent. Diddy, who moments earlier looked relieved, froze completely.
Information. Of course, regardless of whether information qualifies as exculpatory or impeachment, it must be disclosed in time for for its effective use at trial. And the defense continues, moreover, because the government continues to refuse to identify who it views as a victim, also means that the government is also failing to meet its Brady and Giglio obligations with respect to any other alleged victim. Requiring Mr. Combs to follow up on all exculpatory evidence in the 6 weeks before trial is unconstitutionally burdensome. 3,500 materials should also not be produced with an attorney eyes only designation, particularly if the court adopts the government's proposal to delay disclosure of such material until March 21st, 2025. Defense counsel will need Mr. Combs' assistance to properly review the material and effectively prepare for trial. Now, finally, the parties they agree for once. They agree about the witness and exhibit list. The prosecution proposes submitting that list 3 weeks before trial, April 14th, 2025. They say earlier than that doesn't make sense because those motions in limine excluding evidence or arguments won't have been decided yet, and that will affect who or what the government will present. They say the defense can present its list by April 25th, 2025, so that's 1 week in advance of trial. The defense agrees to both. And then both the prosecution and the defense agree to April 11th as the deadline for the jury questionnaire forms. So those are sent out to prospective jurors across the jurisdiction, starts the whole jury selection process on who will be called into court for further questioning and examination. And also both sides agree to April 25th as the deadline for requests to charge or voir dire. That's the more specific process for selecting the jury, and also proposed verdict forms to be submitted. So in the end, what do you see here? You see a little gamesmanship, you see a little strategy, a little practical difficulties all at play here. Remember, it is the prosecution's burden. The defense arguably wants to trip them up, right? They don't want them to be as prepared as possible, trying to take any advantage they can. So this unidentified Jane Doe has sued both Jay-Z, Sean Carter, and Sean Diddy Combs. This is out in New York. This is out in New York federal court, to be more specific. And she is claiming that when she was just 13 years old, she was raped by both of these musicians at a Video Music Awards after party back in 2000. And now Jay-Z, who is adamantly denying the allegations, is not only trying to get the whole case dismissed and thrown out, but he is also asking the court to impose sanctions upon Jane Doe's Texas attorney, Tony Buzbee. Now, this may sound very familiar, by the way, because this has been an ongoing legal war between Buzbee and Jay-Z and his legal team. Accusations that Buzbee engaged in extortion, that his firm pressured a client to lie, that Jay-Z's camp has been engaging in intimidation and harassment. Jay-Z called Tony Buzbee a deplorable human being. He even filed a lawsuit against Tony Buzbee. And by the way, Jay-Z and his legal team, their position was that Buzbee had extorted the rapper, that Buzbee allegedly threatened Jay-Z during negotiations that he would go public with these claims. Jay-Z says these are false claims, but public with these claims unless Jay-Z agreed to pay what they claim is a, quote, exorbitant sum in private mediation within a 2-week period. Jay-Z says that when he refused, that is when he was named by Tony Buzbee in the lawsuit. Remember, this lawsuit first came out. It was only identified as unnamed celebrity A, and then in an amended complaint, Jay-Z was identified as
Diddy looked like he had seen a ghost. According to people close to the case, the sudden mention of Jay-Z came from a confidential witness who gave explosive testimony behind closed doors. That witness claimed there were links between Diddy's business dealings and financial operations that also connected Jay-Z to a wider network of corporate shell structures. To be clear, Jay-Z has not been charged with anything, but being named in open court like this is serious. Diddy immediately lost control. Witnesses say he slammed the table, shouting, "Why are you bringing Jay into this? He has nothing to do with it." Court security stepped in fast, and officers tried to calm the situation. One of his lawyers even had to physically stop him from approaching the judge. Cameras kept rolling. Reporters caught everything. The courtroom turned chaotic, and online, it blew up instantly. Before the judge even finished speaking, Jay-Z subpoenaed was already trending everywhere. Headlines flooded the internet. Jay-Z dragged into Diddy RICO fallout. Hov's name mentioned in final moments of trial. Hip-hop power duo under fire. Social media went crazy with memes and theories everywhere.
To engage in sex work for him during his white parties from 2004 to 2009 at defendant Combs' homes in Miami, Florida, and Hampton, New York. Again, we do not know for sure if she is now a part of this criminal case, but that's where my mind went, okay? I thought about the time frame, I thought about her civil lawsuit, It's not outside the realm of possibility. So again, we don't know for sure if she's an alleged victim or a key witness in this case, the same way we don't know for sure if Cassandra Ventura is either. But, we're looking between the lines. Oh, and by the way, let me just add this. Generally speaking, several lawsuits have alleged illegal conduct committed by Combs between 2004 and 2008. Okay. Now, one other thing I have to mention about this, the significance of this change, is that the original complaint had 2008 to the date of the indictment. Now it's 2004 through in or about 2024. So that signifies to me they may be talking about a criminal enterprise engaging in illegal activity even after the indictment. And that's not surprising because, as we reported here on Sidebar, Combs has been accused of breaking the Bureau of Prisons rules as he's locked up at the Metropolitan Detention Center out in Brooklyn, New York. He's been accused of using other inmates' PAC numbers, engaging in three-way phone calls, using others to try to reach out to victims and witnesses. Now, I'm not saying this is what prosecutors are referring to, but there have been allegations that he and those close to him have been engaging in alleged misconduct since his arrest and indictment. So maybe that's why you see the change in that time period. All right, so now let me move on to the next change that I noticed. And again, this is trying to broaden out, in my mind, the scope of alleged illegal activity from just freak-offs. This is beyond just freak-offs. Why? Because in the superseding indictment, it says now some of the commercial sex acts were freak-offs. So you have commercial sex acts that could be illegal that don't, again, rise to the level of freak-offs. There was also another line in the superseding indictment that was new, and I want to tell you about it. It says on page 6, in connection with the commercial sex acts, Combs provided the victims with, among other things, monetary payments, career opportunities, and payment of rent and housing expenses. That is a new line. And it seems to me what they're really trying to do, prosecutors here, are trying to explain the commercial element of these acts, providing or promising something of value to coerce these people into doing this. Now, by the way, the defense will say, look, Sean Combs, if these were his girlfriends or these were his romantic partners, don't boyfriends pay for gifts? Don't they give them money if they need it? Don't they help them out? This is not sex trafficking. This is a relationship. That is what I anticipate we will hear from the defense. Okay, now we have another big change in this superseding indictment. Actually, it's a whole new paragraph. This wasn't in the original indictment. This is the new paragraph in the superseding indictment. Quote, other commercial sex acts involved only Combs and a female victim. As with freak-offs, other members and associates of the Combs enterprise.
Old clips of Diddy and Jay-Z together started resurfacing across the internet. Fans were confused, trying to figure out what was really happening. Even the Beehive joined in, demanding answers and defending Beyoncé's family from any claims. Back inside the courtroom, the judge clarified the situation. This was not a formal charge against Jay-Z, but rather part of an ongoing federal investigation tied to overlapping financial records connected to the Diddy case. In other words, things just became much more complicated. Legal experts immediately started analyzing the situation. Some questioned the credibility of the witness. Others suggested this could be a strategic move by prosecutors to pressure bigger industry figures. One former federal attorney told CNN that whenever a name like Sean Carter comes up under sealed testimony, there is usually something real behind it. Diddy's reaction said everything. Sources say he was completely shaken by how the trial ended. What should have been his moment of relief turned into a fresh wave of controversy that could also affect people close to him. And the history between Diddy and Jay-Z only made things more intense, from collaborations to events and business ties spanning decades. Now both names were trending for all the wrong reasons. Jay-Z's team quickly responded, stating that he has not been contacted by any authorities and denying any involvement in unrelated legal matters. But by then, the story had already taken off.
To drum up clients to bring claims against Combs and against Jay-Z. And maybe the attorneys have reached some sort of understanding about the ground rules. Maybe not, but maybe they have, and letting this motion go is part of that understanding. That would be my third possible reason.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned that it's speculation, but I think by you kind of explaining that, I feel like that might also be very plausible. I want to go back to what you said during kind of your second explanation, where, I'm sure Jay-Z from his side he probably wants this lawsuit just to be, or this complaint to be dismissed, or not even amended in the first place, made in the first place. Obviously, nothing goes away in the blink of an eye, excuse me. But in your opinion, watching all of this legal back and forth that's been unfolding these past few months, do you think there is enough to dismiss, or do you think at a point this will even get litigated?
I think it's going to get litigated. If I had to guess, I haven't really studied the complaint against the motion to dismiss, so I don't have a advanced opinion about it. But my reaction to it is that the complaint accuses him of some very bad stuff, and that ought to be enough to move the case forward. That's my guess. Now, remember, at the outset of these litigations, we go through kind of a honing phase where the dispute is sort of narrowed down to certain parties and certain claims. And sometimes the motion to dismiss doesn't get rid of the case entirely, but it gets rid of some of the claims, or it gets rid of some of the parties. I see today, by way of example, there's a brand new filing dismissing defendant Bad Boy Records LLC. There were separate claims against that company, and I don't know where all these companies fit in the pantheon of Bad Boy Records, but that company...
50 Cent, never one to stay quiet, jumped into the conversation instantly. He posted a split image of Diddy reacting in court and Jay-Z looking surprised, with a caption joking that the situation was getting out of hand and writing itself like a movie. As expected, it went viral. Meanwhile, insiders say Jay-Z was completely caught off guard. Reports suggest he was in meetings for upcoming projects when the news broke, and his phone started blowing up with messages from business partners and associates. He even canceled a scheduled appearance at a Rock Nation event that evening. Beyoncé, reportedly upset by the situation, shared a simple Instagram story showing a justice scale with no caption. Fans took it as both support and a quiet statement. Things got even more complicated when details from the sealed testimony began leaking. It allegedly referenced offshore accounts, business structures, and royalty-related companies tied to multiple industry names, including connections to major entertainment businesses. Nothing has been proven, but the implications alone were enough to shake the industry.
Obedient and compliant. So that is very, very similar to the description of the freak-offs. I guess what's happening here, prosecutors might be looking at their case and saying, we're going to describe these alleged illegal sexual episodes, these instances of sex trafficking, and if the term freak-off wasn't used, or it's not characteristic of a freak-off, then a jury could look at this and say, you know, prosecutors, I don't think this is a freak-off as you described. But now broadening it to say, we're talking about generally illegal commercial sex acts that may or may not be freak-offs, that is how they're trying to win this case. That's my take, at least. And I think this is really to solidify and crystallize that sex trafficking charge. And you see the addition of commercial sex acts with the freak-offs. For instance, we see lines like this one in the superseding indictment that creates that separation. Quote, Combs subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse to cause the victims to engage in freak-offs and other commercial sex acts. Okay, now we have another line that was changed from the original indictment. In the original indictment, it read, Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted participating in freak-offs. In the new indictment, it says, Combs also threatened victims' careers and livelihoods, including if they resisted engaging in sex acts with Combs and at times with Combs and male commercial sex workers. They're going beyond the specificity of freak-offs. Okay, we have another change that's pretty notable too. So both indictments, they share a paragraph where they discuss how Combs, if anyone threatened him, if anyone threatened his authority or reputation.
At this point, nothing has been confirmed, no charges filed, and no grand jury announced, but the impact is already massive. Industry insiders are calling it one of the biggest potential shakeups in hip-hop business history. Some believe more subpoenas could follow, and more major names might be drawn in as investigators continue reviewing financial records spanning years. The Department of Justice is reportedly digging deep into industry deals and partnerships. In a time where hip-hop has become a global business empire, these investigations could change everything. As for Diddy, reports say he has withdrawn to a private estate, feeling both relieved and overwhelmed. He beat the case, but the aftermath tells a different story. Because now, his name is tied to a situation that may have pulled others into the spotlight with him. And that might end up being the biggest twist of all. Stay tuned, because if the last 24 hours are any indication, this story is far from over.